I'm Sandy Laycox, Editor-in-Chief of Leader's Edge, and I'm so pleased to share this exchange between the Council's Senior Vice President of Government Affairs, Joel Wood, and well-known Democratic political consultant, David Axelrod. In a conversation that is heartwarming, educational, and wide-ranging, the two discuss the future of the ACA, prescription drugs, pollsters, and whether Mitch McConnell and Joe Biden can actually work together. I hope you enjoy it.
I am Joel Wood, Senior Vice President of Government Affairs at the Council, and I am so pleased to be joined again today with David Axelrod. Everybody knows David has an incredible political resume, obviously. Known most for being the senior strategist for both of the Obama campaigns and senior advisor to President Obama. We were blessed to have during our ILF meeting, both David and Mike Murphy. They host the wonderful podcast I highly recommend, Hacks on Tap. We're having an opportunity to continue this dialogue. I hope we'll have other opportunities. We want to mostly focus on, with the incoming administration, obviously our association cares an awful lot about the employer-sponsored group health insurance marketplace, given the reality that, everything comes down to Georgia. There's a great prospect in the alternative that President Biden will be the first Democratic president without a Democratic Senate since Grover Cleveland. In a divided government, knowing what, especially looking back on those opening months and the sequencing after President Obama was elected, knowing the COVID relief is going to be the first thing that's out the door, and knowing that there should be room for bipartisan cooperation on some things like immigration reform or infrastructure. I just wonder what your thoughts are in terms of sequencing, and do you think the closeness in the Senate now dooms the prospect of a robust public option? So that's a big question.
Although the payoff is probably the most significant part of it for your members. Look, I think that it's an uphill battle for Democrats in Georgia. Highly likely, in my mind, that Republicans will control the Senate. It seems to me unlikely that the public option will move forward. I do think it's possible that a President Biden or that President Biden will try and move forward with, and this is not based on inside knowledge, but just speculation, would try and move forward on some sort of combined COVID and healthcare bill that would correct some of the things that the Trump administration has done relative to subsidies and other elements of the program that need strengthening to restore it to where it was when he came to office. But the idea that the public option would be in there, it seems pretty remote to me at this point. I don't see him getting that. If there were a Democratic Senate, I think the prospects would be better. But even if it's a tied Senate, that's not a slam dunk issue in my mind. I do think, though, that he will try and move forward on elements of strengthening the Affordable Care Act. And my guess is he can find a Republican voter to do that. And that includes, by the way, reinstating the 100% match on Medicaid for the states that haven't yet enrolled in that aspect of the Affordable Care Act. That was discussed by some legislation was moved on that by Senator Alexander, who's now retiring, on the Republican side. So there are possibilities there for that, but not. I think if your concern is the public option, it's probably pretty unlikely right now.
How about administrative actions? I mean, the president-elect is not, by his nature, someone who wants to push the envelope on executive action, but there's a lot that he can do, a lot of creative things that you can do within the framework of the ACA itself. Do you expect to see a lot of that?
I think there will be administrative actions around the ACA, and one of the things that I anticipate is that, that these low cost plans that are sub ACA standards that the president has pushed, what I think a lot of Democrats would call junk plans. I hope I'm not stepping on anyone's toes here, but those plans I think are likely not to get, the grandfathering of those is not going to continue. I think you'll see attempts to expand enrollment dates, and they'll need funds to have robust marketing and assistance around enrollment in the ACA. But there are things that they can do administratively, and that they will do administratively.
On the issue of junk plans, I think the majority of our member firms would agree that this is disruptive to universal coverage. We do have some member firms that sell them. I think the trick on that, though, as they call them, short-term limited duration insurance plans, exercised under the 1332 waivers by the Trump administration. But some might argue that that's the only insurance that some employers can afford. Do you put at risk, having lived through that experience of if you like your insurance, you get to keep it, the reality that there are 3 million of those policies that are out there? Do you think that the broader concerns about their disruption are going to prevail?
Joel, I'm not sophisticated enough in healthcare policy to comment on sort of how one would deal with that, whether you allow these policies to phase out, or whether I don't think they're going to accept more of them. I don't think they're going to expand that. And ultimately, what they would say is that you need to enhance the Affordable Care Act, enhance subsidies, so as to make those policies competitive and give people health care that has a minimum set of standards that actually meets their, fundamental health care needs.
So I just recalled you were at the White House signing ceremony for.
Was.
Did you actually? What was it? Vice President Biden said to President.
It's a big effing deal.
I don't think that was the word.
No.
I can get Mike Murphy.
I'm cleaning it up in deference to your organization, but it was a big deal, and I can just tell you that I have a child with a chronic illness that almost bankrupted our family, and we had insurance. And I wept the night that law was passed. And maybe I said that when we were together last, but there are a lot of people who've wept to me who were helped by it. And, I wish we could take the heat out of this and work together as a country to say, how do we, in the least disruptive way, make sure that everyone can get the basic health care that they need? And, so that was a big deal. And, we've taken some steps backward. I think we'll take some steps forward. I don't think they're going to be steps that are so disruptive as to create huge debates. The other question that's come up is on Medicare. And, the vice president during the campaign, the president-elect talked about lowering the allowing people between 60 and 65 to buy into the Medicare system at their own cost. Not sure that that's, I'm not sure that that's going to happen for a variety of reasons. I think he's going to, it may, because it's politically popular. But I think he's going to focus on really trying to strengthen the Affordable Care Act. And there'll be questions swirling around Medicare because some of the steps that were taken by this administration has lowered the solvency date now to 2024, and it could be when they take the next look at it, it could be 2023. So I think talk about, even though it's a buy-in, talk about that may make people very uneasy.
You mentioned your personal experience of not making a lot of money, working for the Chicago Tribune with a child with a chronic disorder. Personally, in the other room is my son who has Duchenne muscular dystrophy. One specific, and it's very expensive. And we're blessed to have good coverage. But I will say one thing that I'm hopeful that any of your thoughts on this, the drug companies are extremely powerful in Washington.
Yeah.
The only drug that is approved by the FDA specifically for my son's condition is this one, and it's $88,000 a year. That's $241 per pill, and it
Yeah.
costs them about $1 to make it. Specialty drugs, prescription drug transparency, pharmacy benefit managers. It sure seems like this is an area where Republicans and Democrats could agree. And frankly, Trump has tried to take on with largely not a lot of success administratively, the drug
Yeah.
company. Might
Yeah.
you think we see something emerge on this front?
Well, he did toward the very end of his administration. He's now tried to move on this most favorable nation approach so that Americans will pay the same drug prices that are paid overseas. I don't know whether that is a vehicle that Biden will continue, but I think this issue is one that is really, really meaningful. That I had flashbacks, Joel, when you held up that vial or that bottle of pills, because that is exactly what we faced. My daughter had very complex epilepsy. She needed drugs that were not the common drugs. Some were new on the market, and my insurance didn't cover prescription drugs, and that was a large part of our challenge. A lot of Americans are going through that and having to make terrible choices, and that is something that transcends. Listen, one thing about illness it's not a partisan thing, and we've learned that with the virus. Even if some of the reaction to the virus has become political, I think there is pressure on both sides of the aisle, and yes, they are very, very powerful, and we had to navigate that during the fight for the Affordable Care Act. But I think this thing has reached a point where there may be some action that will be taken, and that they'll find partners on the other side of the aisle to do it. I can't describe what form it will take. But if Biden's looking for issues on which he can pick off partners, that may be one, and it may be that this is the time when Now, I will say on the other end of of this argument. It'll be interesting to see how people feel about the pharmaceutical industry in the midst of these vaccines and so on. And has that changed people's orientation? Because the reality is that these are life-saving drugs, as you know. The question is, what is reasonable? And because they are life-saving drugs, to deprive people of them because they are so expensive is essentially to deprive them of the chance to live. And that's what makes this different. This is not a normal commodity. And so we have to figure that out and figure out what the cost of research and development actually is, and what the government's proper role is in all of that. I think the biggest issue people talk about on healthcare, and this, you guys do reams of research, I'm sure, is cost. And this is a big element of the cost. And by the way, it's a big element of the cost for the government as well.
One of the things that we found most attractive in the ACA was that it called for the HHS to create a national benchmark plan that would be sort of basic elements of care, not sort of a copper level plan. But HHS never fully implemented that. Might that be something that could, with the theory being that would help drive down some of the costs on the exchanges? Yeah. Might that be something that could be revisited in the Biden administration because the administrative ability already exists?
Yes, I think so. And look, if you look back to 2017, there was a lot of optimism. It seemed like the markets had settled. They had figured out what the appropriate price levels were. You didn't see these huge jumps in price coming, and but this has been, but the President Trump, for whatever reason, has decided that the Affordable Care Act needed to be destroyed, tried to do it legislatively through the courts, and tried to burrow under it administratively. And that has put insurers and patients in a very bad position. I think you're going to see more stability now in an effort to shore the whole thing up in ways that reduce cost and stabilize the markets.
Much has been made about the reality that Leader McConnell and President-elect Biden served together for decades. They're not chummy, but they're friendly. and that they're both institutionalists. Yet we have obviously a deeply divided country right now. How do you characterize what you think that kind of, what, if any, working relationship there will be if, as you predict, Senate Republicans continue to prevail?
Well, I will tell you, when we were in the White House, in the 2 years that I was there, which was the first 2 years, the most eventful 2 years in some ways, um, uh, it was the vice president who went to the Hill and was able to talk to McConnell. Part of it was that McConnell and Obama didn't have very good relationship, and Biden knew how to talk sort of politician to politician with McConnell. And we did a series of really important things after the midterm elections in the lame duck session in 2010. We were able to accomplish a lot, and a lot of it had to do with Biden's negotiations with McConnell. But McConnell had an impetus then. We had a new whole new group of legislators coming into the House in the new Republican majority who were averse to compromise. He knew they were coming. And so he had an impetus to try and get a lot of things done that he wanted and give the administration some of the things that they wanted to clear the decks before the new group came in. We'll see what he does here. I am, one of the reasons that we didn't have much luck with McConnell generally was because he didn't see it in his interest for us to be successful on a bipartisan basis. He thought that would help cement our majorities, help reelect the president. And he fundamentally, he sees his first mission as maintaining his majority. So we'll see whether he feels like cooperating with Biden is politically helpful to him, and at what level he needs to cooperate to do that. I think the idea that he would green light some significant rollback of the Trump tax cuts, unlikely. But are there things, for example, is there an infrastructure program that he'd be willing to work on? Or will he, allow some of these healthcare things to go forward? I mentioned reconciliation earlier, though, Joel, because all you need is 50 votes for that. And they may be able to find it. One of the great ironies is one of the people who they may go to is Susan Collins, who Democrats fought so hard to defeat, but who has taken a very, generally a progressive, relatively progressive viewpoint on the Affordable Care Act. Now that it's been implemented, but there are others as well they may go to. So that relationship's going to be very important. The ability to put majorities together in other on a thing like reconciliation will be important as well, in case that route doesn't work.
Gosh, I wish that I had another hour to explore these issues with you. Two quick final questions.
Yeah.
Should we ever believe pollsters again?
I'm just putting together a symposium at my Institute of Politics at the University of Chicago to just do a deep dive on what exactly happened. I think clearly there was something missed, and it was largely, again, for the second straight election, an inability to properly gauge what was going on with white non-college voters. I heard an interesting theory the other day, which was that when we were polling, when there was polling during the pandemic, a lot of those people were out working because they have to, and a lot of white college educated voters and other college educated voters were home and answering phones. That may have skewed some of it. I don't know, but I think that there's still a place for polling. I think polling on issues, or it's probably easier than polling on politics, particularly when Donald Trump is on the ballot. But I think we have to, look at those things. I will say that the Trump pollsters predicted to some degree what would happen. Much to my embarrassment, I was vociferous in rejecting the Iowa poll. Ann Seltzer is the esteemed pollster for the Des Moines Register, and she has a remarkable record. She came out with a poll a few days before the election saying that Trump was winning by 8 points. No other poll had it that way. And there were things about that poll that looked wrong to me, and I was very vociferous about it. She turned out to be right on the money, and she used different methodology, and I'm eager to talk to her about it. So I don't think we should give up on polling, but certainly we should approach it with jaundice. And I think pollsters themselves have to engage in some real introspection about what went wrong and why.
Indeed. And final question, how's your daughter?
That's such a nice question. She is doing about as well as one can. You know, she lives in a community for people with intellectual disabilities, differences, and she loves it in Chicago. But it also means that she either can come home and stay with us until the virus is over, or she stays there, but they don't want her going back and forth. And she loves her friends, so she doesn't want to leave her friends. And what it means is we saw her through a window the other day, and it's very, very painful. But it's no more painful than what so many people across the country are going through. And thank God she's healthy. And I hope the same is true of your son and your family, Joel.
Well, it's been the silver lining for us to spend so much time with him, though he displays some disturbing Tea Party-like beliefs. But we'll save that for another day. David, thank you. God bless you and your family. Stay well.
For you and in the holidays and beyond. Thank you. Great to be with you.
That was the Council's Joel Wood and political consultant David Axelrod. Join us next week for a follow-on conversation with Axelrod's podcast co-host and longtime Republican political consultant Mike Murphy.